This is Business Talk, your business, your success. Sponsored by Take Action Business Coaching. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and may not be the views of the staff, advertisers, and owners of the station. Advice given is not intended to replace that of your business advisor. Now, let's get down to talking about your business, your success. This is Business Talk.
Well, good afternoon, Peg. Here we go again.
Good afternoon. Yes, good to be here.
Yes.
I wasn't here last week with you. We had Dave.
Dave Hawkins from Paul J. Ford.
Yes,
right?
I missed that, unfortunately.
A fine young engineer.
Yes, as he said, 2 engineers on the radio station.
Oh, man, everybody was listening. Thousands and thousands of phone calls.
That is, of course, because
awesome.
you two are brilliant.
We are. Totally brilliant.
We are.
Oh, my goodness.
And so who are we? We are business coaches.
Right.
We're here every Saturday, we've been doing this for years.
Quite a long time.
Not different times. I don't know how long we've been on this time slot, maybe a year.
Maybe a year and a half, something like that.
So our goal is to give you some ideas and strategies that you're going to walk away with, whether you're a manager, an employee, a leader, a business owner.
Right.
You're going to walk away with something that you can use from today.
So we work with a whole variety of different types of
Yes.
businesses, and we'll tell you a little bit about that. And we're going to talk about a topic today, but we're going to use some examples. This topic we're going to talk about is some of the characteristics of a great CEO and what some of the best CEOs are really good at. And there's 4 key things we're going to cover.
Yes, absolutely. And before that, now, Pete, knowing you've done some research because that's what you do.
Oh, absolutely.
And we want to start with some good news. What's going on out there?
Some good news. Well, I've got several, so I'm going to be quick on each one of these. So number one is more borrowers are paying on time. Only 2% of jumbo mortgages were 90 days or more, the lowest overdue, the lowest rate in nearly 10 years.
Wow.
So more people are paying their mortgages on time. They've got a little chart here, and there's different. It's interesting. If you look at metro areas,
Yeah.
Las Vegas is the highest. It's 9.8% of people big mortgages are paying 30 days or later.
Well,
And
that's
the average
good
for the
news.
country is only 2%.
Well, that's good news. Wow.
It is very good news. So
Wow.
anyway,
Well, this is
people are
good.
paying on time
Well, people
more
have money.
often because they have a little more money.
They have money. Okay, that's
Stocks
good.
rise after solid reading. So the economy is doing well, slow and steady,
Okay.
and the stock market is reflecting that. So that's
I
another
like that.
good
So
news.
again, we're talking about people having money.
Absolutely.
This is good.
Next thing is copper rally has investors on edge. So this is funny. It's kind of good news, and now it's making people scared. Copper has steadily risen over the past few months. If you look at this chart here right out of the Wall Street Journal, and people are starting to worry because maybe it's gone too far. But generally, rising commodity prices like copper or silver mean that the economy is pretty well because they're
that's good.
industrial metals and they're used in a lot of things. And then the last thing I have here is that, and this is a really cool thing because really productivity has picked up in the second quarter. So workers are picking up the pace. And our economy, if we're not improving productivity in general, our standard of living doesn't go up.
Yes.
And over the last few years, now you can't see this chart, but Peg can, but
I
it's
can describe it to
steadily
you.
declined for many years, and now it's starting to pick up a bit. And hopefully technology and some other things that are happening, the information-fueled technology boom that we've had, hopefully that's improving and
good
helping
news.
us. So it's starting to help us a bit.
Well, and you know what we're seeing with our clients, and we have clients all over the U.S. from Alaska. We always say Alaska, and we get a few eyebrows that go up. Oh, I see you're throwing away the good news now. We're done with that. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Because there's so much coming in, we can't save it, Peg. It'll be bushel
We're just going to
baskets
move
full
on.
of it.
We're going to move on, and we're
Right.
going to have more and more and more. I love it.
More good news, right,
I like
all the
it.
time.
So we do have clients from Alaska, which it does give us
Alaska,
Alaska
yeah, for
to.
sure.
I always say Maine, and it's not Maine; it's Maryland.
Maryland, yeah,
and
Maine,
Texas,
Maryland, Mississippi.
So we have lots of clients, and everybody is doing really well. The economy
They
is
are.
booming.
They are.
Our biggest challenge I see is getting people.
That's what I was going to say. That is probably, if you're going to pick one thing, that is the one thing that almost everybody is struggling with.
Getting good people.
Getting good people.
Which you should be doing all the time. So this is
Always
a good
looking.
segue. Oh, always looking.
Okay.
If there's one, and we do have that. When we're meeting with our leaders, that's the one thing that I'll have to be doing. Okay, who are you interviewing? Even if you don't have a position open,
Right.
you're interviewing.
Right. You're always thinking ahead, even 6 months or a year.
It's like I said, create your file cabinet filled with people who want to work for you so that when the opportunity is there, you pull that person out. You've already vetted them. You have been dating them for a while, and now it's your time to move forward.
Oh, so you got like a back pocket employee. Is that
back
what you're
pocket
saying?
employees. Every one of our managers, that's our coach. That's
okay.
what they're doing.
All right.
Okay, things are going great. Do you have a back pocket employee? In fact, we have one client here locally that we've been doing that for the last, I want to say 2 years, and they've been growing. They've doubled since we've been coaching them, doubled in size. And from at 1.8 to, well, it's more than double now, actually. It's 1.8 million a year to 5 million. It's one of our smaller businesses.
Right.
And
they're not so small anymore.
They're really not that small anymore.
Getting over 5 million, that really narrows down the number of companies.
Yeah, they're definitely not as and one of the things they do is they have the back pocket employees. So they're constantly, their general manager, their manager, the owner, they're all going out on lunches and figuring this out way ahead of time. Way ahead of time. So for
that's
each position,
fueling their growth.
It's fueling their growth because they know
awesome.
That's part of their plan. Okay, who is in our back pocket now? So
this is Business Talk with Peg and Pete, and we are talking about the 4 qualities. And once we get through that topic, there are some other things that we'd suggest that great CEOs would do, and we'll talk about those as well.
Okay, so with that, why don't we hop right into it? So Pete, you start. You talk a little bit about what brought.
Let's do that. So this article actually came from the Wharton School at Penn in Philadelphia, and they're interviewing a person here. It's the let's see, her name is Miss Botello, and they're talking about CEOs and CFOs and the best CEOs. And it's interesting that she said the data was fascinating. We weren't fishing for any particular hypothesis, so they didn't start with a hypothesis. They just wanted to find out, why are these people successful? Kind of like Napoleon Hill a long time ago, or Good to Great, that kind of thing.
Think and Grow Rich, or Jim Collins. It's Good to Great, where they go out and they interview and they do a bunch of research. Okay.
So what they found was that the stereotypical, larger-than-life, charismatic CEO who makes very few mistakes and is the smartest person in the room, it just doesn't happen. And it's a lot different than that. And
that's good to hear, because I know a lot of CEOs. We work with a lot of CEOs, and I'll say presidents, people who are running these companies, and they put a lot of pressure on themselves to perform, and they beat themselves up because they want to be better and better and better.
Like perfect at everything.
Exactly.
And that was, I think, her point. She said that you don't have to be perfect at everything. There are a few things that if you do these things really well, statistically, you're going to be at the top. But you don't have to be great at everything.
Did she talk about the companies that she went out and researched, or?
Yeah, this is out of their database. It was 2,000 CEOs, 18,000 executives. So they looked at CEOs and high-level executives both.
Right.
So
I'm glad that they did that. Okay.
So it's 20,000 people basically.
Holy cow!
In large companies.
That's a major research project.
But it included folks from Fortune 100 companies down to 100-person companies. So it's a very broad. It's not all big companies. They said only 7% of these executives had an Ivy League education.
Isn't that interesting?
That isn't a thing. 8% didn't graduate from college at all.
Wow, there you go.
Never finished college.
There you go.
And she just said, it's obvious, but she said in the final analysis, the educational pedigree really didn't impact their performance. So then they go on to talk about what did impact their performance.
I like that, because it makes sense to me, because if you look at who we're coaching, we're seeing the same thing. Now, we don't have 2,000, or how many people did they?
20,000 people.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so if you look at our hundreds, in comparison, we don't have 20,000, but we have hundreds.
But you see patterns.
We see the same patterns. So as we're looking through this article, the reason that we picked it is because we felt it really paralleled with our experience, our knowledge, and our case studies. So we're going to share with you these traits and then give you examples.
Yeah, so here's one of the things that she picked out of this. She said it depends on how well that person, and this is the executive or CEO, how that person's skill sets are matched to what the job requires at the time.
Timing
so
is
businesses
everything.
go through these growth spurts. You just mentioned this company. That company was very different at 600,000 than it is at 5 million.
Right, different company.
And the skill sets of the person in charge need to change.
Well, either you grow or
you
hire. There
Exactly.
we go.
Jinx.
Buy me a pop. So, absolutely. So I like that. So that's good.
It's much more about what you do and what your behaviors are. And I'm talking to you leaders out there, and the skills and abilities you develop in your life, as opposed to traits that you happen to be born with. So it's not about you being charismatic or you're a born leader, that kind of thing. It's what you do with your education or your experience that you got along the way. It matters what you do with what you're given, not what you're given. Isn't
I
that
like
interesting?
that. Yeah. So one of the traits that they said, I'm hopping ahead, aren't I? Should we?
That's okay. You can give them a teaser.
We had one trait. Yeah, we're
You
doing
got
a
a teaser
teaser,
here.
right? Well, when we return from break, we'll talk more detail. But one trait, and I didn't know if you had an order for this, was the ability to learn and grow quickly, right? That's one of the 4 traits.
Well, you combine 2 of them.
Oh, sorry. I love it. Well, I gave
But
you
you're
both.
very efficient. You do things very efficiently, Peg.
So it's the ability to learn quickly.
Absolutely, or the desire to learn.
Yes, the
You have to
desire
want to learn, and you've got to be able to make decisions quickly. So we're going to talk about that. These 4 specific behaviors.
Which is funny because when you're working with us, the first question we ask you is, are you willing to learn?
Right, that's true. And will you do what you say you're going to do?
And then that's how you know you're going to grow. So when we return, we'll get in more detail.
To learn more about today's topic, call 614-306-7922. Now, back to more business talk.
So we're talking here about 4 characteristics that CEOs use, the best CEOs use to get results.
Uh-huh. And go ahead and tell us, Pete, what is it?
So one of them is the speed at which they make decisions.
Great.
So the best CEOs, and we have examples of this. We're laughing.
We're having too much fun.
We are. Is that specifically that he talks about the fact that it's decision making. You've got to make quality decisions, of course. If you decide to drive your bus over the cliff, that's bad. But you've got to do it fast. You have to make quality decisions, but you also have to do it fast.
And to your point, it's not about, I like how you always say it, Pete, is you say, we're not saying be uneducated about the decisions you're making.
Correct.
You're saying gather the education and then make it quickly based on what's in front of you.
Once you've got the information, enough information to be able to make a quality decision, you need to do it as soon as possible.
Well, and it's interesting because when you and I, we talked about this obviously beforehand, and we were saying we have an example of a couple people when they didn't make the decision.
Right.
It kills the momentum of the business. We lose opportunities. And let's talk about the one company.
Well, a very common one, and this has happened multiple times in the last year or so.
Absolutely.
And this is a suggestion for all of you out there that hire, is that once you when you find good candidates, you've got to move. You got to move quickly, particularly in this market. Great people get jobs like that, and they're gone. And
that's true.
If you've waited 2 weeks to call them, and then you call them and go, "Oh, I just took a job,"
it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late, and that could have been the perfect person.
Well, and equally, one thing we see often is we keep people around that we need to have. We need to. What is it? They need to be. We work with one company. They say
they need to be free.
They need to. You need to. We have one company that says we need to free up your future. We have another
free
one.
Up your future.
We have another
like
one that says, "Well, you need to be an alumni."
An alumni.
You're an
right.
alumni. It's time for you to be an alumni. So often. So here's a question that we want to ask you: is looking at your organization, who is that one person, or it may be multiple, that you know shouldn't be working for you? And you know you're delaying that decision because it's hard, because you feel bad, and they have a family, and they've been with you, and you think that they're going to turn around because you just don't want to give up, and you know in your heart that they aren't a match for your culture. And I'm telling you, everybody who's listening right now, I bet you're moving your head.
Most
up and
organizations have one, right?
they do.
Yeah.
And so one difficult conversation we had last week with a person, we'll call him Sam, is I said, Sam, look at this one person, and I know you know that they're good, and I know you know that they have some great qualities.
Right.
But are they getting you the results you want?
In your business.
In your business, no. Are they melding with your company? Are they meshing? Well, no. Have they in the last 2 years?
They're not a cultural fit.
They're not
either.
a cultural fit. And because of that, tell me the impact that is having on your organization. Well, there's lots of infighting and people are getting upset.
Sure.
And Sam is, doing
it's a
this
ripple
and this.
effect on others within you, and the other people see it, right?
And you're not making that decision, and that's a tough one. So I like that one of not making decisions fast enough.
So I'm reading from the article here again. It's decisiveness does in fact relate to performance, and it's actually more frequent that CEOs stand out for the speed of their decision making, not simply the quality. So it's about making great decisions. It's quality decisions times speed. And
we support that.
This is something out of Jeff Bezos' shareholder letter that he sends out. And it could be a primer for all 4 CEO behaviors. So maybe that's something we should read. And it says good decisions. This is from Bezos again. Amazon is going to be a great company, and we make good decisions, and we make them quickly.
I like it.
Great.
Okay, so as a manager, CEO, leadership, and this is Peg and Pete with Business Talk. And what we're talking about is Pete has a wonderful newsletter where they did a lot of research. They went out and interviewed 20,000
people.
Yes,
right. Yeah.
20,000 different people, and said, okay, what is making these CEOs successful?
Yeah.
And so we just went through the one quality, which is making quick decisions.
Right. And the other thing, and this is kind of interesting when you think about what we just talked about, is the next thing they say, and it's about the same topic, any exceptions. It says very successful CEOs are also very careful. So we just said you got to make fast decisions, but they're also very careful.
Right, because like you said, you're gathering the data to make the decision, and then once you have all the data, you're making it quickly. And keep in mind, here's one thing we hear a lot when we're coaching businesses. We'll say, well, you have the decisions. Well, I'm going to get one more opinion. Well, I'm going to look at this other angle.
There you go.
And that's what kills them.
That's when you get into trouble.
That's when you get into trouble. Because guess what? Everybody has a different opinion. And if we look at this 7 other ways,
you could do that forever.
You're going to come up with a different
right,
ending, and
right.
you're going to delay the decision.
They said a lot of these guys, people will tell you they make, in a given year, they might make 3 or 4 really big decisions for their company. If they're doing a lot more than that, you may want to look at how you're working with your team, and you may not be giving them enough latitude to make decisions on their own.
That's a good one. I like that.
So the second thing that is kind of a corollary to this, the second insight for these CEOs is that they know the right time to make a decision, and how much thoroughness and how much thoughtfulness to put into any one decision.
And I like that 3 to 4 decisions that are really big for the year.
Like
that's
one
really
a quarter.
good.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Isn't that interesting?
That does make sense, though.
And there are a couple of folks that we've worked with in the last couple of years I'm thinking about that made some quick decisions. One was the gentleman in Dallas. He made a decision to move. He was trying to negotiate with his
this is a good story.
Landlord to get some repairs done, and got a lot of pushback about that. And he finally made a decision to move, and it was a great decision. And his business has grown another 25% because they have more room to grow.
Well, and then equally, he made a quick decision to open a satellite office in another city.
He did, in another city.
And
right.
it has grown tremendously.
Right.
Now, and that was Wade. I mean, it was a team decision. So he got the people involved in the team, and they all made it.
But it did not take long. It did not. Once he decided, we were on the phone with the leasing agent very quickly. And within a few months, he had equipment down there, and it was in progress. So his team that was giving input on that saw the results pretty quickly. And it encouraged them.
Well, it inspires, because when you
Yeah.
know you make a difference and it's not stagnant, it inspires your team to want to do more and more. It excites them because they see the results.
The other thing that particular person did, is we looked at a piece of capital equipment, and we did the numbers on it, he and his CFO, and within a day or two, we'd figured out that it would earn us a certain percentage return. And he got on the phone and got quotes and had a deal done within 2 weeks. He had purchased a piece of equipment.
That is great.
Because he knew that the financial results justified the piece of equipment. He did it right away.
Yeah. Yeah. And, another one where I've seen delays hurt is if you let someone go and you keep them around.
Okay.
And not give them, and they delay. Oh, maybe they should just stay. They could stay. They've been good. And it doesn't work well.
Yeah. You can
majority
pay
of the
them,
time.
and they can be an alumni, right?
They can be an alumni that way. I've seen that that hurt. That hurt people.
Company T-shirt, right?
Over analyzing, then you get paralyzed, and you don't make a decision, and it hurts everyone. So
you're going to like this next one.
Okay, what's the next one? Okay, so going back, it's the 4 qualities that were researched of what a great CEO has, correct?
Right,
okay.
right. And this company did research with 20,000 executive CEOs and high-level executives, and the number one thing was speed of decision making. Making quality decisions very quickly. That's
and
number
this is
one.
in order. Oh, okay, in priorities. Okay, so the priority is this. No. Oh, no, it's just 1 of 4.
Yeah, it's 1 of 4.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
So number 2 is they are relentlessly reliable.
Okay.
Isn't that cool?
That makes
Sounds
a lot of
good,
sense.
Well,
you know what?
Relentlessly reliable.
Well, let's describe a little bit about what that
it's funny.
means.
This lady, Miss Botello, is being interviewed here, and she said reliability was kind of annoyingly obvious It should be plain. But of the four behaviors, reliability is the only one that's statistically associated with a greater likelihood of getting hired, and demonstrating reliability leads you to be more likely to get the job as well as perform into it. So in other words, if somebody's late to an interview, don't hire them.
That's a good one. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but you just need to do what you say you're going to do. I mean, we say that all the time to ourselves and our clients. It's one of our company values, right?
Right.
You got to follow through and just do what you say you're going to do.
And it sounds easy, but are you, when you're making commitments to your team and telling them you're going to do something, are you doing it?
Right.
And because sometimes I got to tell you, we walk in and they said, oh, they say they're going to do this new program, but it never follows through. Or, oh, this is the flavor of the week.
You hear this from employees.
Yes.
About management.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You and I have heard that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just the flavor of the week. This won't last. They never, follow through on what they tell us they're going to do. Mm-hmm. They start down a track and then they stop.
So now you're thinking, you're a leader out there, you're going, oh, maybe I've done some of that. Okay,
Yes.
So the next question is, how can leaders become more reliable?
Perfect question.
And this lady said, well, they've got a website and they've got a self-assessment. They had 4,000 people take this self-assessment. And they said it looks like they need to improve their reliability. So they talked about it's a fundamental behavior. We think about reliability, it's really about three things. Number one is the mindset, thinking that if I tell you I'm going to do something, I need to do it, right? That's if you have that in your mind.
That makes all the sense in the world.
Number two, it's about people.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to do it because I promised another human being I'm going to do it. So I care about that person and what they think of me, and I'm going to follow through.
Which really goes to your character, too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really about character. Got it.
And the other thing, and this is interesting, and sometimes we get pushback on this, is that it's about processes and the cadence of how you run the company. In other words, if you have meetings at the right time, the right frequency with the right people to make certain decisions, you've got to do those routines that help people to carry through with their jobs and to get your impact, your input when you need to give it.
So that was, okay, so what we were talking about is, as the second thing, and again, it's not a priority, it's just areas. So we have two of the four that we've covered so far of what are great characteristics in a CEO or upper level executives. And one was the speed of decision making.
Right.
And the second one is reliability. And then if you're not reliable, there's different areas that you can look at to help.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they said that this mindset of accountability, CEOs who are highly reliable, they want to be counted on. So they want to be a member of the team that will follow through when they're asked to do something themselves personally. And that filters through the entire organization. So the whole organization reflects this person's type of character of getting things done when they do it.
Right. And that's what we always say is look at your team. So if you're a manager, executive out there, look at your team and tell me what you're seeing, and then look in the mirror yourself, because the fact is they're giving back what you're giving to them. So if you don't have trust, are you trusting them?
Very good.
If they're not following through, are you following through with them?
Life is a mirror.
Life is a mirror, and that's what you're getting. And they are copying you, just like your kids mirror you, your employees.
So if I want people to be more reliable, maybe I need to be more reliable myself and make sure I follow through on things, and people will understand that that's important.
That's exactly what
do
we're
it as
talking
well.
about. So when we return, we'll continue with the characteristics of great executives and CEOs.
Perfect.
Could your business use some help? Call 614-306-7922 to schedule your coaching session. 614-306-7922. Now, here's more business talk.
Well, we're talking today about 4 qualities that great CEOs and executives possess. And this company did research with 20,000 people and got 4 key things that great leaders tend to do.
And one of the things is, as you're listening to the show and you might have just popped in and said, darn it, I missed the first part, you can always go to our website, Take Action Business Coaching. So it's takeactionbusinesscoaching.com.
Right.
And then we have all of our, Alan, who is our wonderful producer.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan. He makes sure that we get the shows on the site so that you can listen to any of the archive shows.
There's a little icon on the website that says Business Talk. Just click on that and you'll see all these past shows.
Yes, and it's labeled by category. So this one, I would assume Alan would label it Four qualities of great CEOs.
There you have
Well,
it.
now that I've said that, I'm sure that's what it will be.
That is excellent communication, Peg.
Excellent.
Ellen, you got it.
Got
Check.
it. Okay, so before the break, we talked about the speed of
decisions.
And then the second one?
The second one was being reliable.
Okay.
Relentlessly reliable.
Relentlessly reliable. So we have
So a
two
culture
more.
of accountability.
We have two more.
Two more. So the next one, you're going to like this one, Peg. It's they're masters at relationships. It sounds obvious, but these folks value and understand the value of building solid relationships with people.
Well, and it's good that this is in here because when Pete and I were with a company a couple different companies who are looking to fill their next president.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, so we're looking out, and this is like 3 years or 4 years from now, who's going to take over for
Right.
us. And I said, you know what I want you to do is I want you to write down all the characteristics that you think are important in your president.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, why don't you help me? Like, what would you say? And then
Yeah.
and then you got to find the character of the individual that will fill that. And one of the things I always talk about is a president should inspire and allow people to want to follow them. They need to be inspirational. And inspiration is all about relationships.
So here's a quote from the lady who's being interviewed for this article. Being a CEO or being a leader of any kind is a team sport, right? You're only a leader if you can get others to follow you.
That's exactly it.
I mean, that's
and that
it.
doesn't mean that you have to be charismatic. And I mean,
Right.
charismatic, I should say, is helpful, but it's about inspiring.
And engaging. You've got to be able to engage
Yes.
folks. And why would they want to be interested in getting this thing done? And you've got to be able to figure out what motivates this other person and how can I help them get done what they want to get done and move this new initiative forward.
Right. Because, if you're a leader and you don't have any followers, then are you a leader? So you need to have these people. And you do that through relationships. And there is a book, The 5 Levels of Leadership, by
John
Maxwell.
Maxwell's book. Yeah, excellent.
And he really goes into relationship building and your ability to be task-oriented and relationship-oriented and not be too much either side. So making sure that you are relationship-oriented.
Yeah, and this is interesting because it's in this article.
go
It
ahead
said
and
that
say
you
what-
can go too far one way or the other. And we talk to our clients about this too. If you're focused all on likability, everybody loves me, or if you're the taskmaster, either
Yeah.
way, you're going to have poor results generally. So you've got to be able to get along with people, but you have to be able to focus on that and the job at the same time.
Right. Because at the same time, we have talked to people and we're like, you're not thinking business. Put your business hat on because you're thinking way too on the relationship end. So there is a balance that you as the leader, the CEO or president, absolutely, it's the balance.
Yep. So you
That's
got a
good.
balance between that. And they focus on relationships. And we've worked with folks in large organization. I'm thinking of one in particular at a very large company who was a master. He knew everybody and he knew the right person to go to for help with a given situation because he built relationships over years. He valued building relationships with people.
Right.
Even not even in his department, but other departments, and making sure that other people knew what their goals were. And when somebody needed to be promoted, he knew where to look.
So it's interesting because I'm working with a couple of managers right now, executives, on this because what they did is they figured out that if they looked at their leadership, which is one of the things we do when we coach you, is we look at what are the gaps and where are the improvements. And this person had that they needed to increase their relationships with their people.
Okay.
Because they're so task-oriented. They're such an operator that they're not
Not as
instinctively
engaging as they
right.
could be. Okay.
So some of the strategies that we worked with her on that she's joined is one is she created a calendar and she has 15 people.
Right.
And she's going to take each person out one-on-one and just talk to them not about business but about themselves.
That's great.
Now, in some cases, there are some people who would not like that. Employees are super analytical, high
And that's
C.
okay, right?
Right. We're going to come up with another way of doing that.
Right.
But so that would be
but
one
for
strategy.
a lot of people, they would love a half-hour lunch with the boss.
Absolutely.
Fantastic, right?
And then the other thing we realized when we saw that the relationships weren't there, I said, how often are you meeting them one-on-one and what's the format of that one-on-one?
Right.
And so we changed the format, increased the frequency, and we've gotten great feedback from the employees
So
already.
that's why we were actually with an organization last week talking about their meetings, and they have meetings of different groups for different purposes, but they also include one-on-ones. And it's really critical to do both. it's great to have your group meetings so everybody knows what's going on and that kind of thing. But you also need to spend some time individually with your employees.
Right.
So a lot of people thrive on that.
And when we get feedback, when we go in, and Pete and I will do interviews before we coach. So Pete and I are business coaches. And this is why we call this business talk, because we're telling you.
Oddly enough.
Yes, we're giving you strategies, ideas. We've been doing this for the last 13 years, and we want you to walk away with some ideas. And if you are interested, you know what? If people are interested in talking to us one-on-one.
Give us a call, 614-306-7922.
And Pete, and you'll get Pete's number, and we'll set up a time to talk one-on-one.
Yeah, we'll just talk over the phone. That's the process. And if it makes sense for us to meet face-to-face, we'll do it.
Absolutely. So we're giving you strategies that work for other teams and executives that we coach. But really, when we go in and do the initial interview, when we start working with people, we do hear, I'd like to see him more, or I need him to be more approachable, or I'd like more time. So generally, we want to look at how much time are you spending just with your employees.
The other thing this comes back to, Peg, is the behavior profile. You've got to know your people to the extent that I may be able to spend 15 minutes with you, Peg, once a week, but somebody else might need a little more time than that. They may need me to talk to them for 5 minutes 3 or 4 times during the week. Well, and then they'll feel good about it.
Exactly. I love it. And equally, maybe you just need to listen and not talk.
Ooh.
And maybe not solve their problems.
But this is talk radio.
I know. So that's just one idea. So we've had 3 so far, right?
Yeah, so this third one is Masters at Relationships.
Got it.
They're very good at cultivating and maintaining and growing relationships with everybody.
I like it.
Okay,
I
great.
like it.
So good. Now,
okay,
ready.
So are we ready for the 4th one?
I think we're ready.
Okay.
Drum roll, Alan. Drum roll.
All right, drum roll.
All right. The 4th attribute is that they're fast learners.
Fast learners.
They adapt very quickly to changing circumstances, and they go into some things in here about. Look at the use of drones. Look at some of the things that have changed in the last 5 years, even. Look at what our phones are doing now versus a few years ago. What these phones are doing, these iPhones.
That's a good point. And so they do say learn fast, huh?
You better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And if you do it, that also filters through the whole organization. People realize that we have to get this figured out quickly.
Well, and I like that learning fast, because when we coach, one thing, we were with a company that we were onboarding, and we said, let us tell you the one thing of how quickly the coaching sees results. It's how quickly they learn. The candidate, whoever we're coaching, because the faster they learn, the faster they grow, they adapt, they change, they apply. And that's what helps us grow as a team, as an individual, as a company.
Yeah, and they phrase it as adaptability. That's one of the key attributes of a great CEO or a successful executive, is to be able to adapt to various situations.
Yes.
And not use the same strategy you used 5 years ago. It might not work.
That's true. And being able to learn quickly also. So here's one challenge. We were with a owner of a company last week, and I said, okay, let's look about what you're reading. Now, remember, if you're not a reader, there's podcasts, there's audiobooks.
You can be a listener.
You can be a listener. You can get on it. TED Talks. You can listen to this in your car. What is your learning curriculum? What is your plan? Because you need to be growing at a fast rate if you want your team to grow.
Right. The other thing that it says in here is that the reality is most of these successful CEOs that are strong at these 4 behaviors, they're great at mining their mistakes for learning about themselves and their organization. Mm-hmm. So this is not that it's easy, but they're really good about if there's an error or a big problem, looking at, well, what was my role in that? And then let's really figure out what happened here and how can I change to help the culture change to prevent that from happening again. So they're not they're very low on defensiveness.
Okay,
and they're
gotcha.
interested in figuring out how can I do better all the time.
So right now,
personally,
we've gone through how many?
4 things.
So what were the 4?
The 4 were speed of decision making, of course, making quality decisions, but making them fast. So the second one
was reliability.
Was being relentlessly reliable and a culture of accountability. The third thing is being great at relationships, building great relationships.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then the 4th is learning quickly.
Learning quickly, right? And being adaptable.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And then when we return, we'll go into a little bit more of qualities with the CEO.
Great.
To learn more about today's topic, call 614-306-7922. Now, back to more business talk.
We're talking today about the qualities and characteristics of great CEOs, Peg.
We've had a fun show so far.
Oh, yeah.
I just hope those that are listening understand that when you take one or two of these strategies we've thrown out there, or just be just a little self-reflection and adjustments that you need to make, the impact it can make on your life and in all the families of the lives that you employ or that you manage. It really impacts everyone.
Oh, right, absolutely.
It's wonderful.
So we talked about those things, and one of the things Peg and I get to do as coaches is to continuously learn. So we go to conferences, and we went to one down in Houston a few months ago. This is long before the hurricane and the floods and all that.
You know, I never even thought of that.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
right.
Yeah, we were
I
there.
didn't even think. There we were. That was before the hurricanes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, our next one, we have one in San Diego coming up, and then we're going to the Great Barrier Reef, right?
In Australia.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. And Keith Cunningham, we've seen him speak a couple times. He's one of the people we learn from, and he's great. And one of the things he does is he's the rich dad behind Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's behind that story. He didn't write it, but he was the character that Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechner.
He was the actual person that it was built on, right?
The mentorship, absolutely. And he also wrote a book, Keys to the Vault.
Right.
Which is great, but he's this financial guru, and we got to see him talk, and I thought his wisdom that he gave us, I have been repeating it time and time again as we meet with our leaders, but he's like, okay, and he's just sort of rough kind of guy in a good way, he wears jeans, he's from
a Texan,
and he's like,
he's like, oh, this is how it is,
this
son.
is it now, son, if you're out there and you're running a company, like kind of guy, you know.
That's kind of how
There's only 4 things, just 4 things, the big 4 things that you're responsible for.
So this segment, we're going to talk about those 4 things.
It was
Keith.
Wonderful. It was
wonderful
wonderful
it was good.
because it made all the sense. Now, before we did 4 qualities of a great CEO.
Yes.
Now, what he's speaking to this is what are the big 4 things that you should concentrate on as a CEO?
Right. And one of my clients, who's the president of a company, that I actually pulled this out, and we've been working on these for a while, even before we went to the conference. But afterwards, I showed it to him, and he just started laughing. He's like, holy cow, this is what we've been doing.
Yes.
Because at a year and a half ago, he was working at a somewhat lower level, and now he's becoming more of the president.
Yes.
And he's had to, But let's start with item number 1 is to identify obstacles.
Right.
Things that are getting in your way, your company's way, or maybe your employee's way. And it could be different by department, right?
I like that, Pete. I like that because I don't think anybody would have pulled that out. If there's only 4, now as Keith Cunningham says, and I don't know that he speaks this way.
That wouldn't be one of mine.
That wouldn't have been one of mine.
Right, but it's a great one. Think about that.
I really liked it. And then I liked how he took it to a new level because he said, we want you to look at the obstacles that are in just your manager's way, your employee's way. Yeah. But then he said, and then what you want to do is you want to create a strategy to overcome these obstacles.
To get around it or through it, and then a machine, meaning a process, for how do you continually get through it.
So that it's not constantly popping up.
Right.
So it's not just about looking at the obstacles. So thinking about this, going back and saying, okay, what actions do I want to take with this? Well, what if you did a survey of your managers saying what are the obstacles that pop up in your way all the time?
Yeah, so here's a question. What's one thing that if we fixed or made better would allow your department to soar or would make your job easier or faster or more efficient?
Why don't we ask that?
If you had 100 people in your organization and they all answered that, you'd probably get some pretty good insight.
Why not? And then that's where then you come up with the strategy and then the machine.
You might come up with a half a dozen things that are obstacles, and then your team can sit there and go, okay, let's prioritize these things. And let's figure out which one we're going to tackle and go after it. And holy cow, when you do that and you've gotten feedback from your employees to get that list, they'll be engaged.
Right, absolutely. So as we're looking at a CEO, manager, president, he said CEO, the big 4. As a CEO, what are the big 4 things that you should be keeping your eye on? One is obstacles. Was one.
Right. That's
okay,
number
so
1.
Now what's number 2, Pete?
Number 2 is prioritization.
Okay.
Sounds funny, right?
Yeah.
But most of the executives that we work with, and the managers for that matter, they're really busy people. And you, as the leader, you have to help them determine where is my precious time and energy going to be spent. So you've got to help your organization all the time figure out if they're spending their time in the right place.
Right. And it's not just about prioritization, that it's about the allocation of your resources, right?
Right.
Making sure that your priorities and your money and your time is being spent in the right place.
Right.
And that's why there's oh golly, Pete, who's the one that wrote the book?
I'm thinking of Vern Harnish right now.
That's it. It's exactly who I was thinking. Vern Harnish. That's
doing
him.
the right things in the right way. And
And-
you've got an idea of what are the critical things that we need to work on.
He always talks about Vern Harnish, which he wrote the Rockefeller Habits.
Yes,
And
Mastering the Rockefeller
Mastering
Habits.
the Rockefeller Habits. Great guy, great mentor. And
Right.
he really does talk about not only do you know your priorities, but have you communicated them? So if you go up to everyone, do they know theirs? Like, do they know yours? Like, do they know what our priorities are?
Right. And that conversation is critical to have, because if you can't, if they don't know your priorities, they're going to work on their own, right?
Right.
And if you go on vacation, they're going to do it how they want to do it.
Right.
And it may not be the way you want it done, right?
So I like it. So, okay, so we got through the first one, which is removing obstacles.
Obstacles,
the second
identifying
one-
and removing, yep.
Second
Second one is prioritization or allocation of resources,
okay, what's,
including time and money and so on. But,
all right, so now we're
Good.
to number 3.
so the next thing, and Peg, you spent a lot of time with this, is the organization chart. And that sounds funny, but the structure of the company, current and in a year or two, and then who is in those spots.
We like to do this when we go into companies and we'll say, okay, let's figure out where you want to grow. So let's say you want to do 15% growth. We have some companies doing 20, 25% growth year over year. Each time you grow, give me a different org chart, show me the revenue, show me the profit, so that we understand the roles and responsibilities. So we see the growth chart, and then let's share it.
Yep.
Let's share that org chart.
Yeah, it was funny. I was with one of your clients a couple of weeks ago on a specific topic, and I asked a question about, well, what will this be like in a couple of years? And this is your client.
Yes.
He pulls out this org chart for 2 years from now. Well, according to my org chart that Peg and I developed, here's where everybody will be in 2 years' time. And I'm like, holy cow, this is good.
Yeah,
You did it already.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. They got it right there.
Oh, it's not a mistake that they're growing. I mean, they're going to be 15% profit.
But as the CEO, that's one of the things that we mentioned in an earlier segment about always be looking for hiring.
Right.
Is that you have to be thinking as a CEO 1 to 2 or 3 years ahead and be looking for those critical people that can come into your organization to help you.
So true. It's so true. And we want you to spend the time. And that's why, when you bring Pete and I in as coaches, what we do is we help you do the things probably need to be done. And we're going to make you do it faster, better.
Yes.
And we're going to be there every week saying, let's get it done. And that's
But it's
how you grow.
what you want done.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
That's what you want done.
But it's faster.
It is.
Right.
So
you want to hear the last one?
yeah, so we're on number 4.
We did 3. We did obstacles, identification and removal, and prioritization or allocation of resources, and we did the organization chart
right.
and future organization chart. The next thing is you're the protector of the culture.
I like that. Okay, let's talk about culture. That soft little word. It's so soft. I had somebody tell me that. I'm like, oh, golly gee.
I don't think so. That's like, it's critical, man.
Well, people.
I think about my mom and dad. Mm-hmm. There's a culture in a family, right?
That is true.
And I think we had a great culture as growing up.
That is great.
And they taught us a lot of things, but the culture was very consistent. It
That is
didn't
great.
change much,
That's true. You do have a culture in your family.
In a family, for sure.
And you do. And also in your company. And you are the keeper. And so that means when there aren't fits in your culture with team members, that might be a little negative. That might not be communicating the way that you would agree with. That is a problem.
Right.
Keeper of the culture is also making sure that we're all one.
So as a CEO, you really are ultimately accountable for the type of culture you have or the type of culture you're growing towards, right?
And I like to define culture, Pete, as the culture is the language people use, the relationships they're creating,
How we treat each other.
how we treat each other. Absolutely. And we have that on teams, too. Obviously, sports teams have cultures.
Absolutely, right.
And it goes from the leader.
Yep.
It goes from the leader. I was with one mom, and we were talking about high school and how each team in high schools has different cultures. And it tends to come
Learning
from the coach.
teams, like groups.
Like
Okay.
sports teams.
Okay.
Like whether it's a golf team or a swim team or
in a school.
In a school. So it's
Okay.
the same school. So you think the school has a culture.
Right.
But each team has its own culture, and it comes from the leader.
Sure.
And how you can go from one team to another and it be dramatically different. Well, it's the same as in your work environment.
So departments can have different cultures. That's absolutely true.
Absolutely. So think of a company is like a high school,
Right.
and that each department could be like a different sports team,
Right.
based on that. And so what you're wanting to do as CEO is to bring that together. You want us to be able to have a culture, because people will come to you and they will stay to you because of your culture.
Right.
And
Right.
they've done study
It
after
attracts
study.
great people.
It does. And it keeps
If you have a strong
great
culture.
people. In fact, if you are interested in finding out how you can test your culture, create a culture check, and have the culture ongoing, we have a product called Teamkeeper that Pete and I distribute that allows us to have insight. And it's wonderful assessments. It's for your team. A lot of our clients use that. Give us a call or email us, and we will give you a demonstration of this assessment tool and survey tool and software that you can have for your company.
So when a manager pulls up a screen for a person, they would have their behavior profile there. They'd have the motivators that motivate this person, and also some things that might stress this person out. So when they go to meet with them, they'll have a little brush up on how that person's wired and make sure that they're treating them in the way the person wants to be treated.
Well, and it's all about culture. So you have weekly culture questions that are coming to you, so you see your engagement of your team. And this is for any team with 12 or more, or 10 or more employees. It's not. It could be by department. It could be for the whole company. It's a wonderful tool. So as you're looking at, as a CEO or a president that's overseeing the culture of a company is one of the top things that they need to be doing, this is a great tool for them to use.
So we've been talking about culture here today. And again, the big four for CEOs is obstacles, identification and removal, prioritization, being a keeper of the org chart, and protector of the culture.
Well, great show. Thank you for listening.
This has been Business Talk, your business, your success. Sponsored by Take Action Business Coaching. The opinions expressed were those of the participants and may not be the views of the staff, advertisers, and owners of the station. Advice given was not intended to replace that of your business advisor. For more information about the topics discussed today, call 614-306-7922. 614-306-7922. Tune in next week at this time for more Business Talk, your business, your success.